1982, the depths of the Ural Mountains. The poacher Dmitry Volkov was tracking a wounded deer when he stumbled upon something impossible. Smoke from a chimney in the middle of the forest. There couldn't be a house here. The nearest village was 80 kilometers away, but as he got closer, he saw a wooden hut, around it the traces of a vegetable garden. On a line, laundry was hung out to dry. When he knocked on the door, the woman who opened it shocked him. A woman of about 30, but the dress she wore was from the 1950s. Behind her, 4 more women appeared, all of different ages. The oldest was around 60 years old, and they all asked the same question. Is Stalin dead? Dmitry couldn't speak. Stalin had died 29 years ago. These women had been living here for 30 years. But why? Dmitry Volkov had no special reason to enter the Ural forests that morning. A former forester, 45 years old. After retiring, he made his living from illegal hunting. It was one of those crimes that the local authorities turned a blind eye to. Everyone knew, but nobody cared. That morning was the first day of October. The snow had not yet fallen, but it was cold. The sunlight, piercing through the trees, failed to warm the earth. Dmitry set off with his rifle on his shoulder, in his backpack a little bread and a bottle of vodka, hunting for deer. It was nearing noon when he saw a stag, a large, majestic animal. Dmitry was experienced. He shot without getting too close. The first bullet hit the deer's leg. The animal, panicked, fled deep into the forest. Dmitry followed it. Wounded deer don't go far, but this deer went 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers. Dmitry followed the blood trail and realized he was entering a completely unfamiliar area. He had roamed this forest for years, but he had never been here. Too deep. He had no GPS. He determined his direction only by the position of the sun, and that's when he saw it. The smoke. At first, he thought he was mistaken. Maybe a forest fire? Maybe his tired eyes were seeing a hallucination. But no. A thin, white smoke, rising steadily, smoke from a chimney. Dmitry approached, holding his rifle ready. His heart was pounding. There couldn't be anyone here. The closest settlement, the town of Krasnovychersk, was 80 kilometers to the south. No road led here. In winter, this place became completely isolated, and then he saw the house. A wooden hut, small, but solid-looking. The roof was carefully repaired. It had windows. It had a door. Around it, a small vegetable garden. Traces of pumpkin, cabbage, potatoes, and most astonishingly, laundry hung on a line. Women's dresses. 1,000 possibilities flashed through Dmitry's mind. Maybe a madman lived here. Maybe an escaped criminal. And maybe... Knock, knock, knock. A whisper. Quick footsteps. The woman looked at him not with fear, but with curiosity. Then she spoke in Russian, but with a strange accent, as if she hadn't spoken to other people in a long time. Who are you? Other voices were heard from behind. The door opened completely, and 4 more women appeared. One very old with completely white hair, 2 middle-aged, and one very young, perhaps about 25 years old. And they all asked the same question. Is Stalin dead? Dmitry was confused. Stalin. Stalin had died in 1953. Everyone knew that. But these women... Yes, he finally said. Stalin died in 1953. The women looked at each other. The oldest one, with the white hair, smiled slowly. Tears welled up in her eyes. He's dead, she said. He's finally dead. The young woman began to cry. The others tried to comfort her. Dmitry was still in shock, trying to understand what was happening. You. How long have you lived here? The old woman spoke. Since 1953, since March. Dmitry calculated quickly. From 1953 to 1982. 29 years, almost 30 years. 30 years here, alone. The women nodded. Come in, said the old woman. It's cold. We'll serve you some tea. Dmitri entered. Inside the hut, it was surprisingly tidy. A stove, a few wooden beds. Real tea with sugar. Tell us about the outside world, said the old woman. What did Khrushchev do? Were there reforms? Are the people free? Dmitri didn't know what to tell them. What hadn't happened in 30 years, the space race, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, the Brezhnev era, Afghanistan. A lot has changed, he said. A great deal. Days passed. Dmitri did not return to the village after that first day. He couldn't go back. He had to hear these women's story. The old woman's name was Ekaterina. She was born in 1923. She was from the last generation that remembered Russia before the Stalinist revolution. Her story was the most tragic. In 1937, during the Great Purge, her husband was arrested on charges of Trotskyism. Ekaterina was pregnant at the time. She never saw her husband again. She found out years later that he had been shot. The child, a boy, was born in 1938, but after 3 months, he fell ill and died. There were no medicines in the hospitals. Ekaterina was left alone, but worse, she was labeled the wife of an enemy of the people. She was fired from her job. No one spoke to her. Her family disowned her. You do not exist, they told her. To us, you are dead. In 1950, the situation improved a little, but Ekaterina could not heal the wound inside. And then, in 1953, the rumor spread that Stalin was dying. Ekaterina made a decision. She would flee far away, so far that not even Stalin's ghost could find her. The second woman, Olga, was younger. She was born in 1930. Her story was different. Olga was the daughter of an NKVD officer. Her father was purged in 1949 during the Leningrad affair. The accusation was simple: espionage. There was no evidence, just a denunciation. Olga's family fell apart. Her mother committed suicide. Her brother was exiled to Siberia. Olga was left alone. At 19 years old, alone with the stigma. The third woman, Natalia, was a doctor. She was born in 1925, worked in a hospital on the front lines. After the war, she returned to Moscow. But what she had seen had changed her. She had seen how dying soldiers were left to die, how medicines were hidden for important patients. In 1950, she wrote a report on the corruption in the healthcare system. She presented it to her superiors. In response, she was fired and accused of slandering the state. She hadn't been arrested yet, but she knew her time would come. The fourth woman, Marina, was the youngest. She was born in 1932, worked in a factory. Her story was different from the others. She fled for love. The man she loved was a German prisoner of war. After the war, he was forced to work in the camps. Marina met him, fell in love. But for a Soviet woman to love a German prisoner, it was treason. Marina tried to help him escape. They failed. He was caught and shot. Marina fled because she knew she would share his fate. The fifth woman, Irina, was born in 1928, was a teacher, and her crime was only that she had read the wrong book in class. Esenin's poems. Poems forbidden for decadence, a student's family reported her. Irina fled before her arrest. March 1953. When the news of Stalin's death spread, the whole country was in shock. Some wept, others secretly rejoiced. But for these 5 women, it was an opportunity. It was chaos. The authorities didn't know what to do. In Moscow, the struggle for power had begun. No one was interested in ordinary people. Ekaterina made a plan. She had been thinking about it for years. She knew the Ural Mountains. Her husband had been an engineer. He had told her about the logging roads. She had an old map from the 1930s. She found the other women. She had met Olga through the church. Natalia was her old neighbor. Marina and Irina, by a happy coincidence, met on the same train. The 5 of them gathered. The plan was simple: to take the train to the Urals, then enter the forest and disappear forever. But how will we survive? Asked Marina. We will learn, said Ekaterina. Humanity has lived like this for thousands of years. We will learn too. March 17, 1953, 2 days after Stalin's funeral, the 5 women boarded the train from Moscow. They had tickets, but they didn't have passports. The conductor didn't even look. In those days, nobody looked at anyone. They reached Krasnovishersk. From there, on foot, they entered the forest. Ekaterina's map was correct. There was an old forester's cabin, marked on the maps. But when they got there, the hut was in ruins. "We will rebuild it," said Natalia. And they rebuilt it. The first year was hell. 5 city women, none of whom knew how to live in the wild. They barely learned to light a fire. Finding food was even harder. Ekaterina remembered a few things she had learned from her husband. Which plants could be eaten? Which mushrooms were poisonous? Natalia, with her medical knowledge, saved their lives. Marina was young and strong. She could cut wood. Olga was patient. She learned to tend the garden. Irina, knowing how to read and write, kept records, wrote a journal. The first winter was terrible. Food was running out. The cold was unbearable. When Marina was on the verge of frostbite, the others warmed her with their bodies. For 3 days and 3 nights, the 5 women lay in one bed, hugging each other to survive. "If we die here," said Marina, "at least we die as free people." But they did not die. When spring came, they had seeds. Potato seeds, which Olga had kept in her pocket. They started a small vegetable garden. The harvest came in the autumn. Little, but enough. The second year was easier. The third year even easier. Over time, they learned the forest, which pine cones were edible, how to catch fish in the river, how to make salt water, and most importantly, they found peace. For 30 years the world turned, but for them, time had stopped in 1953. They never married, they never had children, but they became a family. In the morning, they would wake up together. Ekaterina would prepare breakfast. Olga would tend the garden. Natalia created a small laboratory of plants, gathering medicinal herbs. Marina would chop wood. Irina would read books. This was their greatest treasure. In 1953, they had brought 23 books with them. Classics: Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Pushkin, Chekhov. They read these books tens of times. They knew them by heart. In the evening, they would sit by the stove, read aloud to each other, then discuss literature, philosophy, the meaning of life. "Are we like Pierre Bezukhov?" Marina asked once. "Torn from society, living in our own world?" "No," said Ekaterina. "We are freer, because we chose. Pierre could not choose." Over the years, they stopped being interested in the outside world. At first, they often talked, "I wonder what Khrushchev is doing. Has the war started?" But over time, that lost its importance. For them, the world was the hut, the forest, the river, the sky. It was enough and even more. But still, every year, in March, on the anniversary of Stalin's death, they held a ceremony, a simple ceremony. They would sit together, drink a cup of tea, and silently remember. They remembered the dead, themselves, what they had lost. But at the same time, they celebrated their survival, their freedom. Dmitry Volkov spent 3 days with them. On the 3rd day, Ekaterina made him a proposal. "Don't tell anyone, please." Dmitry was surprised. "But you are alone here. Do you need help? Maybe?" "No," said Ekaterina. "We fled here and we are still fleeing. If the world finds us, it will all be over. But Stalin is dead. You are safe now." Ekaterina smiled sadly. "Young man, Stalin was just a name. The system still exists, and we do not want to be part of that system." Dmitry understood, or tried to understand. "Then what will you do? Stay here forever?" "Yes," said Olga. "We will die here together." When Dmitry returned to the village, he told no one anything. But a month later, he returned. This time, he brought food, salt, sugar, flour. The women at first did not want to accept, but Dmitry insisted. "A gift," he said, "between friends." Years passed. Dmitry visited them a few times a year. Each time he brought small gifts. The women offered him the gifts of the forest: mushrooms, honey, medicinal herbs. In 1988, Dmitry came for the last time. Ekaterina was dying. She was 95 years old. The other women surrounded her. "Dmitri," said Ekaterina in a barely audible voice, "I have a request. Anything. When I die, leave us here. In the forest. No tombstone. Just the trees. That way we will remain here forever. Free." Dmitri couldn't hold back his tears. "I promise." Ekaterina died that night. The other women buried her near the hut. A simple grave. No identifying mark. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Dmitri was old by then, but he went into the forest one more time. The hut was still standing, but inside it was empty. The women were gone. No, they hadn't died. They just weren't there anymore. Dmitri understood. They had never really been there. They were a ghost, a legend. The house in the forest, the missing women, 30 years of silence. But on the table, there was a note, written in Irina's hand. "Dear Dmitri, you found us, and you protected us. For that, we thank you. But the time has come for us to leave. Where? It doesn't matter. What matters is that we are free, and we were free for 30 years. Some people live an entire lifetime and are never free. We lived only 30 years and were free every day. What is more valuable? Remember us, but do not be sad because we were happy. Truly happy." Dmitri folded the note and put it in his pocket. He left the hut. He didn't look back. In 2003, Dmitri Volkov died at the age of 90. Before he died, he gave his grandson Alexei an envelope. "Tell this story," he told him, "but only after my death. People need to know the price of freedom. They need to know." When Alexei opened the envelope, inside was Irina's note. A few old photographs and a map. On the map, a point was marked. Deep in the Ural forests. In 2010, Alexei went there. He did not find the hut. Maybe it had collapsed, or maybe it had never existed. But he found something. 5 trees next to each other. Old poplars. Their roots were intertwined, their branches joined together. And Alexei understood in that moment, when the women died, the forest took them in. The 5 women had become 5 trees, but always there, together, free.